Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
This is our weekly Congressional Digest where we try to cut through all the noise.
Yeah, figure out what really happened in Congress this past week.
Exactly. Your shortcut to being genuinely informed without getting, totally bogged down.
And it was quite a week.
Oh, yeah. Packed with really passionate arguments, a lot about money, priorities, the country's future, really. We've gone through the Appropriations Acts, the floor speeches, all of it to figure out what was really driving things.
It's complicated stuff.
Yeah.
It's this whole debate about what makes the country truly strong, truly secure.
And we're going to unpack it for you.
What's really interesting, I think, is how these two big money bills kind of became the main battleground.
Right.
You had the Department of Defense Appropriations Act for 2026, that's H.R. 4016, and then the Rescissions Act of 2025, H.R. 4.
Okay.
And these weren't just about, dollar figures. They were about really fundamental disagreements between Republicans and Democrats.
About how to spend the country's money.
Exactly. And what's actually important, what the priorities should be.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. The big elephant in the room, maybe. The national debt.
Mm-hmm. A huge one. $36 trillion.
Wow. Yeah. And Republicans, you consistently hear them emphasizing fiscal responsibility, right? The need to cut spending.
That's their focus.
Yeah.
Their approach often involves rooting out what they call waste, fraud, and abuse.
You hear that phrase a lot. They often cite savings found by, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE.
Right. And they also argue that their tax cuts, the ones from 2017 they made permanent, will ultimately grow the economy enough to, deal with the debt eventually.
So the idea is growth solves it. But they also say even small cuts now are important.
Yeah, vital to stop the waste is the argument. And the underlying belief, really, is that people should keep more of their own money.
Spend, save, invest it themselves.
Right, fostering the economy from the bottom up, essentially.
Okay, but there's another side to this coin.
Absolutely. Connecting this to the bigger picture, Democrats really challenge that narrative.
How so?
Well, they point to those same tax cuts, especially the parts benefiting billionaires, and argue those added trillions to the debt.
So they see a contradiction.
Exactly. They say it makes the arguments about making small cuts to programs seem, maybe a bit hypocritical.
And their concern is that cutting essential programs hurts ordinary people.
That's the core of their argument, that it's a way to benefit the wealthy, essentially. And they also tend to argue that, people know how the economy feels in their own lives.
So trying to spin it doesn't work?
Right. Any politician trying to tell them otherwise might look foolish. People trust their own experience.
We heard some specific examples of this tension, too, like one Republican lawmaker arguing that under Trump, jobs and wages were mostly going up for Americans. While under Biden, they claimed foreigners got most new jobs and real wages fell.
Okay.
And they also claimed that with Medicaid changes, only able-bodied adults refusing work or illegal aliens or fraudsters would lose coverage.
Which Democrats would strongly dispute, I imagine.
Oh, certainly. But it really highlights this question, doesn't it? How do you balance these fiscal worries with what different communities actually need?
That is the central tension, yeah. It runs through almost all these debates.
Okay, so speaking of big spending areas, let's get into the military budget. That's always huge.
Right. The Department of Defense Appropriations Act for 2026, H.R. 4016.
A lot of moving parts in that one.
For sure.
Republicans leading the bill, their focus was clearly on keeping the U.S. military strong, modern.
Makes sense.
So you see spending on new aircraft F-35s, the next-gen F/A-XX fighters, plus modernizing nuclear weapons, missile warning systems, all that high-tech stuff.
Standard modernization efforts, yeah.
The bill also put money towards fighting drug trafficking, specifically fentanyl.
How?
Through counter-drug programs and using the National Guard more.
Okay.
And then there was the staffing part. Republicans plan to cut about 45,000 civilian DoD employees.
Whoa, that's a lot. What was the justification?
The argument was finding savings and efficiencies, and shrinking the national debt. That was the framing.
Okay. But this bill wasn't smooth sailing, was it? There was controversy.
Not at all. Huge controversy, actually, over what Democrats called poison pill riders.
Ah, the riders. Social policy issues attached to spending bills.
Exactly. And Democrats predicted these could cause a catastrophe, maybe lead to a full-year CR, a continuing resolution.
Which basically means funding just stays level, no new priorities, government shutdowns become a risk. What were the riders?
Things like limiting reproductive health care for service members and their families. policies seen as unfair to gay, lesbian, and transgender service members.
And the Democratic argument against those?
Was that they'd actually hurt the military, make it harder to recruit good people, keep good people, basically messing up military readiness.
So undermining the very strength the bill was supposed to ensure.
That was their point. Plus, rules saying no money could be used for critical race theory or DEIA programs, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility.
All right. And abortion travel.
Yeah, that too. No funding for abortion travel from military members.
Okay. A lot of contentious social issues packed in there.
Definitely. But despite all that, the bill still had significant investments.
Like what? What still got funded?
Well, it protected the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter program, that's a workhorse, and the E-7 Wedgetail early warning aircraft.
Okay, key hardware.
Over $40 billion for the Defense Health Program. That includes assisted reproductive services for seriously ill or injured service members, interestingly enough.
So some reproductive care is funded.
Yeah.
Just not abortion access or travel.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
It also funded cybersecurity initiatives, $500 million for Israeli cooperative defense programs like Iron Dome.
Always a key element.
And $1.5 billion for general military readiness, plus money from the Chi-Chi-Kex Act Defense Fund, for semiconductors.
Crucial for modern tech.
And the Defense Credit Program account. So still a massive spending bill, even with the fights.
Right. A mix of hardware, healthcare, alliances, and those controversial writers.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's talk about the other big money fight. The Rescissions Act, H.R. 4.
Yeah, this one was about cutting money that was already approved. About $9 billion, roughly.
So, clawing back funds. This was framed as a big fight about money, right? Cut wasteful spending versus hurting essential programs.
Exactly. That was the core tension.
So let's break it down. What does this actually mean for people here and maybe around the world? Let's start with foreign aid.
Okay. This bill proposed pretty big cuts to things like international disaster assistance, global health program.
Like PEPFAR for HIV/AIDS?
Potentially impacting programs like that, yeah. Also cuts to Ukraine aid, UNICEF, and even groups like the United States Institute of Peace.
Why the cuts? What was the argument for cutting these?
Well, supporters argued some foreign aid is just, quote, ridiculousness and craziness.
Strong words. Any examples given?
Yeah, one lawmaker specifically mentioned things like, and I'm quoting here, money for sexual reproductive health in Venezuela, climate resilience in Southeast Asia, or even things labeled transgender tampons in Bangladesh and LGBTQ campaigns in Rio.
Okay, so painting specific programs as wasteful or misaligned with certain values?
Precisely. Using very specific, maybe provocative examples to make a broader point about spending priorities.
But what was the counter-argument? Why keep this funding?
Lawmakers on the other side argued, look, these funds save lives. They help the U.S. compete with countries like China. They fight diseases, HIV/AIDS, TB, malaria.
And the Ukraine aid point.
A big one. They argued cutting aid to Ukraine would basically empower Putin, and that pulling back globally creates a void.
A void that China and Russia might fill.
That's the concern, that it diminishes America's standing and influence on the world stage.
This isn't just theoretical, though, is it? There were some pretty stark examples mentioned.
Yeah, really stark. For instance, $800,000 worth of these high-nutrition biscuits. Like 500 tons meant for starving kids in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yeah.
They're apparently being incinerated now.
Yeah.
Because of decisions to cut aid. And it costs taxpayers another $130,000 just to destroy them.
Wow. That seems counterproductive.
That's a powerful image. Or consider the story of Peter, this 10-year-old boy in South Sudan with HIV. He died after his medication ran out due to funding cuts.
Oh, that's awful.
Or a pregnant woman in Liberia who died mid-journey because the USA ambulances were just sitting there. No gas money.
So these cuts have immediate, tragic human costs.
That's the argument being made, yes.
Yeah.
Some have called it America in retreat.
Weakening diplomacy.
Yeah. The idea is firing State Department staff, halting USAID programs. It weakens our soft power. And the argument follows, if you don't fund soft power, you might end up having to buy more bullets later.
Really puts a human face on these budget lines.
Absolutely. It shows the ripple effects far beyond the numbers on a page.
Okay, what else was in that Rescissions Act? It wasn't just foreign aid, right?
No, another big target was public broadcasting.
PBS and NPR.
Yep. The bill sought to cut over $1 billion in funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the CPB, which supports them.
Who would that hit hardest?
Disproportionately, local public radio and TV, especially in rural areas, tribal areas, where sometimes they're the only local news source.
Now, the argument against funding is often that it's biased, right? Like left-wing propaganda.
You definitely hear that argument, but it raises the question of the other roles public broadcasting plays.
Like education, Sesame Street, Arthur, things like that.
Exactly. Kids' educational programming, local news, which we mentioned, and critically, emergency alerts.
Emergency alerts, how so?
Well, think about major disasters. There was an example from the Texas floods where FEMA apparently failed to answer almost two-thirds of calls.
Wow.
And in Kentucky, during the 2021 tornadoes, WKMS public radio was literally the only news source for a while. Cell towers were down, internet was out, but they kept broadcasting on backup power.
So it's not just entertainment, it can be a lifeline.
That's the point supporters make. It's a vital community service, especially when other systems fail.
Were there other cuts in H.R. 4 that raised concerns? Smaller things, maybe?
Yeah, beyond the big ones, concerns were flagged about potential cuts to programs like the Older Americans Act, the OAA.
What does that do?
Supports about 11 million aging Americans, Meals on Wheels, things like that. Also worries about money for veterans care, food assistance for kids and seniors.
So programs targeting vulnerable populations.
Right, and another area mentioned was the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights.
What's the risk there?
The concern is that cutting its funding could remove federal protections for students with disabilities, LGBTQ+ students, Native students, Black students, Latino students, kids in poverty.
It handles discrimination complaints?
Yes, and it also investigates sexual assault on college campuses. So cutting it raises questions about fundamental protections and safety for students.
Okay, so those are the big budget fights, but Congress dealt with other stuff too, right? Let's switch gears a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond the budget, there were other significant debates happening.
Like immigration enforcement. I saw some sharp criticism there.
There was. One lawmaker accused the Trump administration of, quote, weaponization of ICE.
What was the basis for that?
They pointed out that only about 8% of those detained by ICE had convictions for violent crimes, and roughly half had no criminal record at all.
Any specific example?
Yeah, they mentioned a 64-year-old gardener being detained, a raid on a baseball summer camp, trying to paint a picture of broad, maybe indiscriminate enforcement.
And the cost was mentioned too.
A huge cost, $450 million spent on what the critic called an internment camp in the Everglades. And the comment was made, a clean cage is still a cage.
So reframing the debate around the human impact and the financial cost, not just security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shifting the focus.
Okay, what else? Cryptocurrency came up.
It did. Regulation is still a big question there. Two bills mentioned were the Genius Act and the Clarity Act.
Trying to bring some rules to crypto.
That's the goal. Though there's debate about how. One lawmaker argued crypto is, quote, overwhelmingly used for crime.
By who?
They listed Russia, North Korea, Hamas, fentanyl traffickers, even claimed 100% of ransomware attacks are paid in crypto.
That's a strong claim. So what would these acts do?
Well, the Clarity Act would apparently exempt some crypto transfer platforms from regulation. The Genius Act tries to connect crypto more to the traditional financial system.
But there are worries about stability, right? Like stable coins.
Big worries. Someone pointed out that USDC, a major stablecoin, fell to 88 cents during the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. It only recovered after a taxpayer bailout, they argued.
So not always stable raises questions about risk.
Definitely. Balancing innovation with protecting consumers and, national security, it's tricky.
And finally, amidst all this policy stuff, there were some direct criticisms of presidential conduct.
Yeah, that thread continued too. One lawmaker publicly demanded that Donald Trump and our Attorney General come clean and release the Epstein files.
Wow, bringing that up directly. Why?
The reasoning given was straightforward. A lot of people actually care.
Okay. And there was a resolution passed by Democrats.
Yes, stating that the, quote, actions of the Trump administration have created chaos, raised costs for consumers, made the United States less safe, put the health of Americans at risk, and jeopardized the privacy of individuals and businesses.
So the partisan tensions are clearly still very high, running alongside these policy debates.
Absolutely. It's all intertwined. Questions of policy, governance, and public trust.
So as you can clearly see, this week in Congress was, well, it was a big fight. Really different ideas about what's important for the country.
Deeply different visions.
From the huge national debt number down to, specific lines in the military budget or foreign aid programs.
And these aren't just abstract numbers, right? We talk about the human impact.
Exactly. They affect real people here at home and all around the world.
And if you connect it all back, it really underscores how tangled up fiscal policy is with everything else. National security, social programs, America's place in the world.
Yeah.
These debates this week, they show more than just the complexity of governing. They show fundamentally different philosophies about what the government's role should even be.
So hopefully you've gained a deeper sense of the motivations behind these decisions, their potential impacts.
Yeah, the why behind the headlines.
So as these fights continue, because they will, maybe think about what stands out to you. What's the true cost of these choices? How do you weigh the different arguments you hear?
Good questions to reflect on.
Keep thinking about how these actions in Washington ripple out and affect your community and the wider world.
Definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Well, that's all for this deep dive into the week's Congressional Digest. We hope you feel even more well-informed.